Welcome to Breaking Through Health Barriers. This is your host, Dr. Terry Wenner, bringing you education, motivation, and inspiration for healthy living. I'm an educator, a registered nurse, a podcaster, blogger, and video creator, and I'm so glad you decided to listen in today. In today's episode 13, I will be interviewing a very special guest, Chaz Parker, and discussing how to be prepared for your current or next job search. You know, in an increasingly competitive job market, it's important for your overall health and financial well-being that you know what you're in for and that you put your best foot forward as you search for that perfect fit in an employer-employee relationship. Chaz offers several tips and tricks on how to tilt the odds in your favor. So let's get to it. Today we're going to be welcoming our second guest to the show, Chaz Parker. Let me let you know a little bit about him. For starters, he happens to be my one and only, my beloved brother. But other than that, he has a lot of qualifications that make him an ideal person to speak about our topic today. So our topic today is going to be job searching, trying to locate a good position for yourself, one that'll give you financial security and will reduce the stress in your life to the point where you feel like your job is part of your overall health. So, you know, breaking through health barriers is always focused on things that relate to health, and having a job that's a good fit for you and your family is going to be part of that. So let me tell you a little bit more about Chaz. Chaz is a graduate of Penn State University, has a bachelor's degree from Penn State, and then he relocated to Georgia where he has an MBA, master's degree from Kennesaw State University. So what makes Chaz a person that would be qualified to talk about job searches? Well, really there's two main reasons that make Chaz an ideal person to talk about this topic. For one, he has several years of experience working in the recruiting industry and has personal experience as a hiring manager. So he's really had opportunities to hire employees over the past several years. And then secondly, on a more personal level, Chaz has experience searching for his own positions and trying to land the best fit job for him. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chaz, and we're very excited that you could join us today, Chaz, and we look forward to hearing some of your personal insights and expertise on this important topic.
Well, thanks for having me, Tara. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, we've been planning this for a while, so I'm glad that you were able to meet with me today and get this done. So.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to think through how to do just exactly what to talk on the topic and where my expertise lies. And you know, there's so much you can find on the web and just different information out there. And I guess I just kind of wanted to hopefully provide some maybe unique things that you might not find on just out there floating around the web too much. So it might be a little bit of a kind of a unique approach with just talking about some of the things I've found that have worked for me and that will hopefully work for your and help your audience as well. So
yeah, well, we're excited to hear about your perspective on things.
Cool. You know, I guess just thinking through work and I mean, the world has changed a lot, and people don't generally have one job for their careers and their life like the old days. So I mean, most of us will have many jobs and positions throughout our careers, and I guess that's probably, I know that holds true for you and I, and pretty much most people I know, really. So it's kind of, you know, a job search is somewhat ongoing. It's kind of it's kind of a process, an ongoing process. I mean, so you may have a position now, but there'll be a time when you need another position, or when you're interested in finding another position, and you need to be kind of always preparing for that. So and then there's other folks that they just need a position. They need a job. They're maybe out of work or just it's time to go and earn some money. So I guess I'd like to talk about kind of two aspects today. One is just the active job search and some nuts and bolts and things that might help people through that and help your audience through that. But also, and just more on the longer term, as far as maybe positioning yourself for your next position, or where your goals might take you, that sort of thing. So if that makes sense, that would I'll kind of dig into some of those details.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's really something for everyone here today. If you're actively looking for a job search, Chaz is going to be offering some tips and pointers on how you can make that process smoother for yourself. And if you're not currently looking, as he said, the job market's changing and you should anticipate that there will be another job in your future. So, unless you're in retirement years already, you're probably going to have another job out there. And if neither of those categories really fits you, you probably know somebody that would love to know more about this. So, listen in so you can share it with them. That's a great approach, Chaz. I think that starting out by looking with those, for those who need a job in the next few days or weeks, that's a great place to start.
Okay, great. So I guess I actually changed positions not too long ago, probably 6 to 8 months ago, and I hadn't looked for a new job or a new position in probably 10 years prior to that. So it was kind of eye-opening how much things had changed. Just 10 years ago, you kind of would send your resume to some recruiters or post your resume on places like Career Builder, and lo and behold, your phone would ring. And now these days, when a job is posted on the web, on a Career Builder or an Indeed, or even through recruiters or direct with companies, the volume of resumes these businesses get in is astronomical. So their chances are they're never going to see your resume unless you somehow stand out from the crowd. I mean, they can't read 1,000 resumes for one position, right? And so a lot of them have different software where you send a resume in and it goes into a database somewhere, and chances are it will never be seen again. So how do you separate yourself? That's what I'd like to get into a little bit. And one of the key things is you've just got to be you've got to be active in your search. And some of the ways I've found to be helpful is when I see a position out there that I may be interested, that may catch my attention. Well, suddenly I'll kind of do research on that company and try to find people at that company that maybe that I know. A lot of this is done through LinkedIn. And just briefly, LinkedIn is basically, it's kind of a Facebook networking site for career-minded individuals and for the career aspect of our lives. So LinkedIn is a place where it's much like a Facebook, where you'll have a picture there, and you'll have a kind of a career profile that'll explain what you do in your career, and this is somewhat of a resume, really. And it's a place that a lot of recruiters go to searching for candidates, and they actually have a place that people post jobs there. So it's a really important tool for any job search, especially in the professional world.
Yeah.
So
if you don't mind, I'd like to chime in a little bit too. I also recently went through a job change and a job search, and what I had found was that most of my colleagues did not have LinkedIn accounts, and they really did not utilize that tool very successfully. However, it seemed to be that that's where a lot of recruiters and people were looking. I even had a few people that said, you're going to be interviewing with, such and such person, and they would send me their LinkedIn profile, like, go check out this person's profile so you're ready for the interview. I really think LinkedIn is growing and will continue to grow. So that's definitely a place. It's if you're not familiar with it, it's linkedin.com, I believe. You can find it, from any web access.
Yeah, so with LinkedIn, one of the ways it would work is, so you'd find a job posting that you may be interested in. So it's not going to get you very far to just send your resume to the black hole of the company website. So the next more active approach would be, well, who is on LinkedIn from that company? And you can search that company and search the employees that work there if they're on LinkedIn. And like you had said, Terry, that many it's growing, and every day more and more people are on LinkedIn. And I think it will get to a point where everyone will eventually have a LinkedIn page, any career-minded individual anyway. Mm-hmm. So you can connect with people from that company. You can even many times see who posted the position. So a natural thing would be to connect with them, and you can actually do an email. It's called an in-mail on LinkedIn, where you can send your connections basically little emails on the LinkedIn website. So you can chat with them that way, and many times they'll say, "Yeah, Chaz, I would love to talk with you. Please send me your resume," and then they'll give me their email address. And many times their phone number as well. So it's kind of a way to separate yourself apart. And many recruiters and many hiring managers, first they look on LinkedIn. If they get your name, they're going to look at LinkedIn and see what you're about, and they'll, so a professional picture is important. You don't need to put your whole resume out there, but you need to give a flavor of what you do and what your career is about, and where you went to school and where you've worked and that sort of thing. And it's a really, really valuable marketing tool. Mm-hmm. And you'll eventually find that people will start seeking you out, ideally. So it's a very good tool. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, now they have both premium and free accounts, as I understand. What kind do you recommend that our listeners choose?
I think for the average user, a free account is probably sufficient. I don't know too much about the ins and outs of each of them, but I did have a premium. They gave me a free premium account for a while, and you could see certain statistics on a job posting as to how many people applied and how many of them had 10 years experience or more, or how many of them had a master's degree. So it gave you a little insight into that. But then another thing it did was it allowed you to see a larger scope of the people on LinkedIn. So the way a typical free account would work is you have different levels of connection. So if you or I, Terry, are connected, we're a first degree connection. So maybe someone that you're connected with that I'm not, that would be a second degree connection to me. So I could still see their information, that sort of thing. But then you get into the third and fourth degree connections to where, it's a friend of a friend of a friend type of thing.
Yeah.
A free account will not give you access to that.
Okay.
But a premium gives you a little more breadth in that area to see more of that. So just a broader reach, I guess.
Yeah, so it sounds like a real personal decision, and certainly one that could be based on finances too. If you have the resources for that.
I think it's somewhere around $15 a month for a premium, which for most of us probably not worthwhile. But for sure, all the recruiters out there and those types of people, they all have the premium accounts, and there's all sorts of levels of account for professionals in that arena. So
so that's one networking tool is LinkedIn. So whether you're in the job market right now or you might be in the future, LinkedIn seems like it would be both for both types of people. Anything else that you want to tell us about those looking for jobs right now, the active job search?
Yeah, I guess one thing I found very useful is when I started my most recent search, several months ago, I kind of said, what is it that I want to do next? And I happen to be a controller in the accounting world, so I started digging into looking at postings for those types of jobs, and I started to notice certain themes with what people that were looking for controllers, what types of expertise they were looking for. Mm-hmm. So it really helped me to tailor my resume to hit those key points. Like one example was a lot of them I noticed purchasing department would fall under the controller's responsibility. Well, oddly enough, I used to be in purchasing many years ago, and I thought it was kind of useless experience at this point. But gosh, well, a lot of people would expect me to manage purchasing, well, I ought to put that experience on my resume. So it helped me to think about my previous experiences and what these types of positions would kind of require. And so it helped me build a good resume. So that's a kind of a neat little tip, I think, that I found useful.
Using appropriate keywords and things. Now, in your position where you were hiring people, were there certain keywords that you were on the lookout for?
Well, I've always been one to hire. I mean, technical skills and that sort of thing and experience is valuable, but to an extent. But to me, it was more about a can-do outlook and a motivation and a drive to do good work. And because in many cases, you can teach the technical skills for the most part, as long as there's a basic foundation there. So your resume, the purpose of your resume is to get you an interview. That's really the purpose. And then once you have an interview, that's when you drill into getting the job. So the resume, the only purpose of it is to get an interview. Okay. And so it's kind of interesting. You know, I think a lot of people may not put a lot of thought into their resume, but I mean, it's make or break. I mean, if a hiring manager has 10 resumes on their desk, something, you know, what sets them up? What sets you apart? I mean, a lot of experts will tell you to put, you know, not only the skills you have, but how was it beneficial? So, for example, did you, in procurement, maybe I saved a company $1 million by negotiating contracts. So things, they say put numbers and things like that, and put quantitative, quantitative results, measures or results, things like that. So
yeah, I think that you hit upon a really important point. I remember getting one rejection letter, and it said, we had over 100 qualified applicants for this position. We're sorry, we only had one job. And I mean, if you're up against 100 people, you might all be equally qualified, but you have one piece of paper to kind of present yourself. Would you recommend curtailing your resume, like changing it for each place that you apply, or having just kind of one, or how do you go about that?
I think it's important to, what my approach is, I have one general resume for controller, for example, in my case. But then I'll see a position that I may be interested in. Well, I might tweak it a little to kind of relate a little more to that job posting. And you know, and sometimes it's just a matter of moving some bullet points around or dropping a couple sentences and then a couple different sentences. Not usually for me major changes, but you definitely improve your chances the more accurately you connect with the job posting. And like you had mentioned earlier about keywords and things like that, a lot of these systems that recruiters use, and really any hiring company, is they have these databases where all the resumes go into, and then they start looking for keywords. So maybe they need somebody with Excel experience. So they'll type in the keyword Excel and college graduate, those type of things. Yeah. And then it kind of puts to the top of the list those people with those keywords. So if you have Excel noted on your resume 3 times, and that's really what they're looking for, you're going to be towards the top of the list. So it's kind of a game a little bit. You don't really ever know fully what keywords they're going to be looking for. And that's why I say, you know, you might get lucky in that case, but in many cases, you just take a different approach and just try to connect with people and try to talk to people. That's the best way to get to the top of the list. And one thing I do on LinkedIn is connect with recruiters a lot, because, you know, suddenly when they have a position to fill and you're connected with them, well, they might catch you. They might notice, well, gosh, you have these experiences. So, and you're their connection, so they're probably more likely to reach out to you than just a random person they're not connected with. So
I have a question for you. It seemed to me that if I had something to change on my resume and I re-uploaded it, because I made, you know, I recently graduated from an education program, so I added that degree, And when I did that and reposted it, it seemed like everybody got made re-aware that I existed. And I would get a lot of phone calls and emails. Do you think it's important that if you're in the job search for a long time that you change something and like repost your resume occasionally, or does that
Do you mean on posting it on like a career builder?
Yeah, so like Indeed, Monster, Career Builder. I also used a couple that were specific to my industry.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like they would forget about you after a couple weeks went by. But then if I reposted it with an update, some kind of change, they would all be like maybe made aware of it again or something.
Yeah, I think, the way those systems work is I think they tend to place a higher value on the more current activity.
Okay.
So if, like you say, you upload your a resume or make some tweaks and re-upload it every so often, I think you're exactly right, where you get put on the top of the list and suddenly there's, first of all, from a recruiting standpoint, oh, well, gosh, there's a new person out here that just started searching. We need to try to catch them right away before they are scooped up by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. It's probably not a bad idea to every so often make those updates and not let things get stale. Mm-hmm. And also, if you're not getting bites and your resume's out there, well, maybe there is something wrong with your resume. It might be a good sign that it might be time to start changing some things and tweaking them. Mm-hmm. So, and there's no one right answer to all this. It's kind of a little bit of a game. It's a lot of it's a matter of, just matching the right company with the right person. Because I would sit there and say, well, gosh, I'm perfect for this position.
Yeah, it would seem like it, right?
But it's just it's a game of finding. It's not many cases. It's not that you're not perfect. Maybe they don't know about you, but it's finding the right person with the right company. It's a game, and I don't think the best candidates always get the job, or the best people out there always get the job, because it's kind of impossible.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple thoughts at the same time. For one, I was really shocked. It seemed like even though my resume was impressive, they didn't know me. So they weren't really believing everything that they read, in a sense. I read a statistic that 80% of people will get a job because they knew somebody at the company. And that kind of reinforces your ideas that you shared already about the importance of networking, LinkedIn, reaching out, making new connections. As it turned out in my case, I did get a job because someone recommended me. And it was a company that I had worked at previously. And so they took, the recommendation that was given to them, but they also went and talked to like my old boss and a couple old coworkers. And it was really those personal connections that pushed me up to getting an interview, And the other thing I wanted to mention is I know during my search, you would often send me email links to articles that talked about this. So if the listeners out there have questions about, so if I find my resume is not working, what can I do? There's literally hundreds of articles. Even LinkedIn, themselves has many articles, but there's tons of online material. I also rented a few books from the library. For me, I think the more challenging thing was the interviews. I felt like the resume, I was pretty safe because it was me and my computer screen, and I could, tweak it as much or as little as I wanted. But the face-to-face interview to me was quite intimidating. So I learned a lot from books about, when you're asked this particular question, don't go down this bad path. Make sure you stay positive and. So lots of interviewing tips. Do you have any thoughts on the interviews themselves?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is someone that has a can-do spirit and a positive demeanor and a pleasant demeanor, and that just goes so far. I mean, I think once you get to the interview standpoint, the technical skills and your abilities, that's certainly a factor. But I'm assuming anything that you put on your resume should be accurate. So assuming you can answer and prove the technical skills that you've put on your resume, I mean, it's about being pleasant, being someone, a hiring manager is sitting there thinking, well, I'm going to work with this person to be working for me, and I need to be able to count on this person to do whatever it is. First of all, am I going to get along with them? Are they going to do what I need them to do? In many cases, if it's the right personality and somebody that with a can-do attitude that wants to work and wants to do good and wants to be successful, the skills can be taught. I mean, the technical skills can be taught, but you can't teach motivation. So some of the best people I've ever hired didn't necessarily have the perfect technical skills, but they just had the can-do attitude. They just wanted to do well, and they did. And hire the right people and get out of the way. So, and let them do their awesome work. So
Sounds like a wonderful tip.
yeah, I mean, it makes life a lot easier when you have the right people on the bus, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it just seems to work out. And people that really don't want to work or don't want to be there, there's really not a whole lot you can do to motivate them. And I think it's a lot of that just comes internally. There's a lot to those soft skills. I think I may have gotten off track a little bit there, but probably important to say that anyway. So
No, that's great advice. Trying to think if there's anything else that we wanted to cover today. Was there anything else that was on your mind that you wanted to share?
no, I just I hope everyone can get some value out of this conversation. Always, glad to answer any questions anyone may have. You can put my LinkedIn profile in your show notes or whatever if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. I guess you'd be willing to connect with anyone who wants to chat with you.
Sure, that'd be fine. That'd be great. Yeah. I guess just a couple of different references that I found useful. Glassdoor is a website where people put feedback on companies as employees. So a lot of times you can get some pretty good insight as to whether a company is really enjoyable to work at or maybe not so much. And, I think that's, I wouldn't necessarily take all that information as gospel, but it should give you a pretty good benchmark to where if many, many people say this company's great or not so great, well, there probably is some level of truth to it. So that's a good reference. And I found salary.com is a good reference for just salary, a lot of information on whatever position you may be searching for. So at least it's a good reference to at least where you should be salary-wise.
Okay.
And of course, there's all of the job search engines, Indeed and Monster and Career Builder. They're all good places to put your resume. Yeah, so there are just a few final little websites I thought might be valuable.
Yeah, I'll be glad to include all those in the show notes as well as Chaz's LinkedIn page. I think that you have hit on a lot of key points today. I know myself, I sort of fell into jobs throughout most of my career. I was working someplace already and was able to get a promotion, or I knew somebody. One of my jobs, I was a student at a university, and later when I graduated, they hired me. So I didn't have to work really hard, and I had no idea how much the job market had changed until I was out there in it. And what I found was the competition was fierce, and even though I was well qualified, I wasn't convincing people that I was one of the best choices that they could make. So it made it important to start doing proactive approaches, making my LinkedIn page as good as I could, reaching out to people. I wasn't beating people over the head with a stick, but I was making sure people knew I was looking. And if they heard anything, that they would consider me and throw my name in the hat. And, in the end, I think out of all the interviews that I had, the list, I forget how many interviews I had at this point, but it was a fairly lengthy list. I think I ended up where I belonged best. It was the right kind of population, my skills were appropriate, and I think I brought the right attitude to the environment like you suggested. So all great advice, and certainly listeners can leave comments in the comment section on the webpage or drop me an email, and I'll make sure Chaz gets that information. So once again, Chaz, we thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your personal expertise from both your career and your life experience. And we wish you well in any jobs that that you have in your future. And we hope that what you had to say, I hope that has a positive impact on some other people's lives as well. So thank you again for coming.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
Okay.
Best of luck to you too.
Thank you. And maybe we'll have you on again for more specifics about one particular topic.
Yeah, that sounds great. It is a broad topic and a lot of information out there. So.
Okay, thank you. And make sure that you listen in and see if we have any feedback from the listeners for the show.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you really enjoyed that interview with Chaz Parker. And now I want to give you a little challenge for the week ahead. So after listening to what Chaz had to say, I want you to reflect on where you are right now in your career. Are you currently searching for a new job? Are you employed but expecting to make a change in the near future? Or are you satisfied but still cautious about how fast things can change and what might happen in the days ahead? Well, regardless of where you are or where you hope to be in 1, 5, or even 10 years, the time to get started is today. So the challenge for you is to open up your very own LinkedIn account today. It's not only for you, but it gives you an opportunity to endorse the skills of your colleagues and friends. You can write recommendations for others there. You can join groups of people who share similar career interests, and you can start to network with each other. And if you're someone who already has a LinkedIn account, it's time to go back and update it and try to increase your network of friends and connections. So I've posted links on the show notes to Chaz's LinkedIn account, and you certainly can go check that out. He would love that if you were able to do that. And while you're there, try searching on Teresa Wenner, which is my given name, and it is the name that I used in professional environments and my LinkedIn account. So take a look at that as well. And really, the challenge is for you to start your own or to upgrade your own if you already have one. Okay, so we just thank you so much for tuning in today. In wrapping up, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Breaking Through Health Barriers podcast so you don't miss any episodes in the future. And if video is more your style, you can also check out my weekly health mentoring moments on YouTube. This is Dr. Terry Wenner, and together we're going to break through as many health barriers as possible and live happier, healthier lives. Until next time, enjoy each and every day you're given.